Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second rendition of Draco Beaks live streaming. That's not a reaction to a sports event. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing very lovely. How we doing? Another great day, another great week. Football, finally, NFL football is back. And week one's over, so we got to talk about it. College football, heating up. Baseball, finishing the regular season. Tennis happened in America. It happened. I'm telling you. The NHL, things are happening. Things are kind of cooking between some teams and some people online. Interesting stuff. Week 2, we're going to make some picks for that later on here as well. So stick around, man. We're going to be here for roughly an hour. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. We'll see what happens. But thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching it live right now or if you're watching this afterwards as a video. I greatly appreciate it. Hit that like button if you enjoy it. Hit the subscribe button if you're new around here. We're going to be doing this every single week. I'm going to try and do it every Tuesday so we can kind of have a little tension before the new NFL week. I try and plan it around those. But we got it on a Wednesday tonight. It is what it is. Things happen. So let's kind of dive into it, I guess, right? Obviously, we're going to talk NFL first. What a weekend, going from Thursday night with the Chiefs losing to the Lions at home all the way to the Jets and the Bills game just the other night. What a wild way to close out week one. So, yeah, let's start from the beginning and let's move on, right? So we have the Lions and the Chiefs. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I said it last week. I thought the Lions were going to be a good team. I think they will be a good team. But I did not expect them to win that game there in Kansas City at all. Even though Travis Kelce was out, hurt, even though Chris Jones was holding out, even though they've got a deal done, he's going to be playing this week for him. I just didn't think the Chiefs were going to lose that game. They raised the banner. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and the fan base and that crowd there at Arrowhead, I figured they were going to easily dominate that game. But Dan Campbell said, "No way, man. We're going to go in there. We're going to win this game, man." And by goodness, did they win that game. That was a gutsy win. The Lions are on the map now. You kind of saw it towards the end of last season. They were really figuring things out after they had that tough start to the beginning of the season last year. But, man, they are here now, and they are active. They are going to make some noise. I predicted them to win their division, and so far, maybe the Packers have something to say about that, but so far I think they're the best team in that division. So, just me, but we'll see what happens with them. Going on, we'll jump to Monday, because it's the most fresh in my mind, right? Aaron Rodgers, man. 4 plays. 4 plays for Aaron Rodgers. That is not good. Not good, man. I mean, you watch that replay when he goes down, and you just see his, you instantly knew something happened. You know, I'm no doctor, so I didn't know it was Achilles as soon as it happened. But when you watch that replay, and you just see, something just snap there, it's like, oh, no. Poor dude. I mean, everyone online is saying whether he's going to retire or not after everything just happened. And it's a tough one for me to think about it, because some people are like, oh yeah, there's no way he's going to retire after this kind of happened. There's no way he's going to want to go out that way. You know, he wants to really, put a good stamp on the end of his career, right? And I don't necessarily think they're wrong, but just in my mind, it's like, how is he going to react to the surgery? How is his recovery going to go? How is, his mental going to be after going through these surgeries and things like that? So, I mean, honestly, because he went on McAfee's show over this past summer, and he said, I want to play for the Jets, but before I did the whole darkness thing, I was 90% retired at that point. And then he did his thing, came out, talked to the Jets. They got all that deal done and everything like that, got all that sorted. And then something like this happens. With how much he made up his mind over the summer last year that he wanted to retire, I don't know. I don't know. The competitor and the just the overall athlete and how good he is suggests to you that there's no way he's going to retire, right? But I just have a gut feeling, which, who am I, right? I'm just a 24-year-old dude talking to nobody on YouTube, right? I just don't see how he can come back to a level where he can compete to an NFL standard. And I mean, Zach Wilson, he got in there and they ended up winning that game the other night. So, I don't think everything's all doom and gloom for the Jets and the fans, the organization, all that kind of stuff. Even though, you just made this big trade, you're paying this guy so much money, and 4 snaps, he ruptured his Achilles and he's done for the year. That's just not a good look. There's a lot of conversation about the offensive line and the communication between Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett, the OC, and the offensive line coaches, things like that. Because when you look at the pass plays, the 2 tackles on the outside on every pass play, they just cut block. So they just essentially dive, lay on the ground to try and cut out the defender's legs, and it works for about 3/4 of a second, but it's designed for Rodgers to get that ball out by the time the defenders kind of recover from that initial trip up, right? And Rodgers he's not one of those guys who's okay, I'm going to snap the ball and I'm going to look at the first guy, I'm going to throw it over there regardless. He's going to look around, and he's been around long enough to look and see, okay, this guy's not open, so let me go to this guy. Okay, let me go to this guy. That's not enough time for him to go through all of those progressions before those defensive linemen come at him if they're going to take those blocks. So, you saw it in the first play. It's okay, he had no time. And then you saw it when he, gets hurt. It's what are we doing, man? You can't. There had to have been some sort of miscommunication, or no one was talking at all, or what? Because when you see the lineman doing one thing that completely contradicts the way the other guy's trying to play, not a good look. Not a good look at all. So we'll see how that kind of goes moving forward between Zach Wilson and the O-lineman, or any of the quarterbacks that they're looking to bring in, right? But, you look at that and you just feel bad for Jets fans, really. I mean, the Jets are the Jets, and, you got all the stereotypes over however many years, right, of just pain and misery. And you finally get a starting quarterback, and then he's gone before the first 5 minutes of the game clock run out. Not good. Although, I will say, him running out onto the field with the American flag and, it being 9/11 and everything like that, that was freaking amazing. That moment was super cool. But after that, not so much. So we'll see how the Jets go moving forward. I think they're going to be okay because their defense is amazing. They've got great running backs. They've got great receivers. Their quarterback, Zach Wilson, I think just over the one off season, and if Rodgers is going to come back to the building and kind of try and help coach Zach Wilson, I think he's going to be okay. Because he wasn't great Monday night, but he wasn't the old Zach Wilson, per se. That touchdown to Garrett Wilson, unreal. It was mostly Wilson with the unreal acrobatic catch. That was crazy. But they found a way to win that game. So I think the Jets are going to be okay. I just obviously don't think it's going to be the best for them. So we'll see what happens for them. Some other stuff in the NFL world. The Steelers get absolutely blown out by the 49ers at home. The worst home loss under Mike Tomlin. Not good. TJ Watt with 3 sacks. That's awesome. But the 49ers, man, they were clicking. Brock Purdy to Brandon Ayuk. Easy. Easy money. That connection was unreal. The 49ers are humming right out of the gate. I think they're going to be just fine, especially going into Pittsburgh and just whooping a Steelers team that is pretty good at home, and I thought at least, should be making some noise this year. Maybe it's just a week 1 thing. There are a bunch of these games here that it's just oh yeah, that could have very easily been a week 1 thing. Exhibit A. Bengals, Browns. You really think Joe Burrow's not going to score a touchdown in any other game this season? I think it's a lot to do because of the fact that he had his calf injury earlier, and he's just not feeling 100%. Got to get into the season a little bit. But going into Cleveland and going against the Browns, not a good look to lose to a divisional rival that badly. But I mean, the weather was not great. The Cleveland Browns, they look like a team. I think people, even myself, are underrating them just a little bit. And that whole division is going to be a lot of fun to watch, I feel. I think the Bengals are going to figure it out easily. Every single year since Joe Burrow's come into the league, they just get off to a slow start, and they eventually find their feet. They get moving, and they're going to really start making some noise here. So I think the Bengals will be fine, but obviously not a great look after week 1, especially to the divisional opponent. Another divisional opponent, the Baltimore Ravens, get the business done in Baltimore against Houston very easily. I don't think the Texans are going to be, one of the best teams this year. I think they're going to be kind of towards the bottom. Maybe they can win some games. Maybe they don't, have like a top 2, top 5 pick, anything like that. But, the Ravens are just a much better team. I don't think they played as good as they can, but they're going to be just fine. The Raiders beating the Broncos in Denver. I don't think many people saw that coming, even though it was 17-16. The Broncos, they had that onside kick recovery at the very beginning, but they just couldn't. It wouldn't stand because someone barely grazed them like 9 yards after downfield when it needs to go 10, right? So that was unfortunate for them. But Broncos, man, I think they're going to be something similar to the Bengals, where they just kind of start slow because they've got a bunch of new people, new head coach, things like that. But, if they lose 2 or 3 games here over the next couple of weeks, you might be asking some questions. I don't think any single team yet should go into full-on panic mode. Maybe the Giants, but we'll get onto them. But I don't really think any team should be, hitting the panic, all hands on deck, code red, anything like that, at least until week 4, after week 4. I think once you've played 4 games, you kind of start to see how these teams are shaping and how they're forming. But until then, I think we should just relax a little bit. I know a lot of people are, they overreact over a lot of things, and it's hard to blame them because, I'm from St. Louis, and the Bills are my team. We're going to get onto them in a minute. But, I'm not as diehard as a lot of fans. So, in other sports, I'm definitely like that. So I get it, but I don't think you need to, freak out just yet. Some other Sunday games, the Saints-Titans. I said the Saints were going to win. Very, very, a very close game, and that's how it went. I mean, I think these two teams very evenly matched. Derrick Henry, yet again, stiff-arming someone to the shadow realm. I will never get tired of watching those clips because those are just so much fun to watch, right? And yes, he's just such a huge guy, and he's a lot of fun to watch. But the Titans around him, not necessarily the best. Got DeAndre Hopkins now, who knows how much of an impact he's gonna make in all in all. But Saints get the win. They're top of that division, and they're the favorites to win that division. And it kind of showed in that one. Kind of didn't, but moving over to some of the NFC games, the Commanders beat the Cardinals. It was a much closer game than I thought it was going to be, but the Commanders still got it done. Half-price hot dog night, Josh Harris in the building, new owners in the building. There's a lot of new energy for that team, and they got the job done at home against a team who is probably similar to the Texans. Not going to be a good team at all this year, and They get the job done at home. It doesn't really matter what the score is as long as you get the wins, right? I mean, look at the Vikings last year. They won, 10, 11 games that were within 7 points, and they didn't lose any of those games, so good for them. Not so much this year already, just one weekend. But Commanders get the solid win. The Falcons get a good win against the Panthers. I'm very high on Bryce Young and that whole team. I think they're going to surprise a few people on how good they're going to be. But going into Atlanta the other day, losing to the Falcons, not the greatest of starts, right? I think there's a stat somewhere where every single first overall QB, like if you're a quarterback that was the first overall pick in the previous year's draft and you start that next game to start the next season, it's like 0-13 before that game, so now it's 0-14. So what can you do, right? I mean, it is what it is. I'm a Panthers fan at heart. I lived in North Carolina for a little while, so makes sense for me, right? But other than that, I think the Panthers are going to be fine. It's just similar to the Bengals, maybe even the Broncos. Just got to start slow, find your feet, move on, get some good experience, maybe get a couple W's as well, and who knows, maybe they can go on a little bit of a run. The Buccaneers going into Minnesota and picking up a dub. Baker Mayfield is a dog, all right? I don't know how teams didn't see it when he went to LA last year, when he had like less than 48 hours notice to start a football game, and then he won it. I mean, headbutting guys with their helmets on. He doesn't have nothing on. This guy is a guy, and I don't understand how no one was talking about him over the offseason. I mean, he goes to Tampa Bay, and he wins a close battle against Kyle Trask. I don't know if I believe that much anymore, especially after Sunday, going into Minnesota, beating a Vikings team that maybe has taken a step or two back, but they made the playoffs last year. They knew how to win games. Like I said a minute ago, they win close games, and it was the Buccaneers' turn to do that. So we'll see how their season turns out. But after one game, I mean, hard to argue with them. The Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. The Bears just don't know how to beat the Packers. It's just that simple. Everyone thought that it was the Bears' time. You know, Aaron Rodgers is finally out. We don't have to worry about Green Bay anymore. They lost a lot of guys. They're not going to be as good this year. We got this. Justin Fields does nothing but improve. You know, we got DJ Moore, star wide receiver now. The defense is going to improve. The offensive line, the other wide receivers, the running backs. What happened? The Packers roll into Soldier Field, and they take a W away from Chicago this year in the opening week, and it's like nothing has ever changed. I mean, death taxes, Packers win in Soldier Field against the Bears. That's just how it goes, and it sucks for Bears fans, but what can you do, man? What are you going to do? That's just how it goes. Going to the West Coast now, and the Seahawks losing to the Rams. I did not think the Rams were going to win this game at all. You know, yes, they got Matthew Stafford, and yes, he's a great quarterback. And I'll be honest, that was about all I knew on the Rams coming into this year. But apparently they got a lot of young guys and a lot of hungry guys and a good defense, apparently, because Geno Smith in that offense just couldn't get much going. DK Metcalf with a sweet little cut move there to get a touchdown. That was a great highlight. But, I mean, not much else happened for the Seahawks in that game. I mean, what a strange one. That would have been one of the few games that I was very confident that the Seahawks were going to win that game. Not because the Seahawks are great, but because I didn't think the Rams were going to be that good. But I stand corrected, man. That was a great display for the Rams to show, hey, we're not going to stink and do it quietly. So, who knows? I mean, like I said, it's week one. We're going to save a whole lot of judgment for a few weeks down the line. But after week one, man, hopefully the Seahawks can get that offense going because, you know, they got Kyle Walker as their running back, who was great as a rookie last year. You got DK Metcalf. You got Tyler Lockett. Now you got Jackson Smith and Jigba as wide receivers. Geno Smith, I don't think is a bad quarterback. I don't think last year was exactly a fluke, but maybe he's not as good. Who knows? The defense, the Seahawks have always been known for the defense. Will they be able to step it up? Let's see. But, yeah, I did not expect the Rams to win that game at all. All right. Now we got two more NFL games to wrap up with real quick. The Cowboys and the Giants and MetLife. Obviously, the memes of the week. Dallas walks into MetLife. They're in New York, and they drop a 40 burger on the Giants. 40-0. 40 love, as they say in tennis, right? Man, I mean, I'll be honest here with you. I'm from St. Louis. You can see the Offer City, St. Louis City logo right there. So I got two screens right here. The soccer team was playing at the same time as the football game, right? So I got the St. Louis City game on my one screen right here, and I've got my focus on this one. I kind of glaze over here at my other screen every now and then to see what's up. And as I'm watching the soccer game, I look over and I see the Giants are going to go for a field goal. I'm like, okay, make it 3-0. It's early in the game, good start. And I'm watching, and the Giants block it, or the Cowboys block it, return it for a field goal. Nice. All right, 7-0 to the Cowboys. That's, a very good start for them. Getting a special teams touchdown like that, that's going to, help their confidence massively, right? I'm like, all right, it's still early, first quarter, whatever. So I go back to the soccer game. Halftime hits in the soccer game, and I look over, and it's 26-0 before halftime in the football game. I'm like, okay, so what happened? Well, the Cowboys are just great, and they've always been a great regular season team, but man, they took it to the Giants in this one. 40-0. I mean, when you have Micah Parsons after the game talking about how he thinks that the Giants shouldn't have kept Daniel Jones in the game for like the whole fourth quarter because it was already such a blowout that it wasn't even necessary. That's tough to hear if you're a Giants fan, man. I would not be having that at all. Like, the Giants, when they go to Dallas and play there in AT&T Stadium, they might have some things to say about that. So, who knows about that, but my goodness, the Cowboys look good. Dak doesn't look like Dak in the past, which could be a deceptive thing right now because, as Stephen A. always says, he's just wait for the playoffs, just wait for a big moment. And he's not wrong. That's how Dak's been in his whole career so far. So we'll see how that goes. But, man, you want to talk about two totally different opinions of two teams after one game. Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl, and the Giants might get the first overall pick. Whew, not good. Then finally, Monday Night Football, we have the Bills taking on the Jets. Talked about Aaron Rodgers earlier and his whole situation. This game hurt as a Bills fan because not only do you lose that game in overtime to a punt return for a touchdown to end the game. Yes, there was a tripping call and all of that. Don't listen to any of them. You could literally, if you nitpicked every single second of every single play for an entire football game, you could probably find at least one penalty per play in an entire NFL game. So, they missed a trip. It doesn't count. There's an asterisk next to it. Come on, guys. Let's be real here for 2 seconds. Things get missed, and sometimes you just don't need to call them. Like, you're telling me that if they gave that penalty, the Jets weren't going to score a touchdown or at least kick a field goal from that point? Because it was inside the 30. I think it was around the 25 somewhere. An NFL kicker is going to make that field goal 99 times out of 100. So I would have put my money on it. So Josh Allen throwing 3 interceptions. Not great. Only scoring the 1 touchdown. And then the 2 not great, but yeah. One touchdown, 3 field goals for both teams heading into overtime, and then, just not a good look. Not a good look at all. But one game. We're moving on. We're gonna see how it goes next week. And, it's the Bills. They're gonna be just fine next week. I mean, who do they've got next week? They got the Raiders next week, so they'll be just fine. I'm not worried about it. But that's some week 1 wrap up real quick. We'll move on to some other stuff. Kind of college football. Just got done with their second week, moving on to week 3 for college. Texas is back. I hate it. I hate to break it to you. Texas is back. They laid the smack down on Alabama. Colorado is here to stay. Deion Sanders is legendary already. I know some people aren't necessarily thrilled with the antics of it because, what was it? Less than 5, I think it was 3 people came back from last season. And there's depending on where you look, either 60-something or 80-something new guys came into the team. They've won 2 games. One against TCU, who was ranked 17th, and another against Nebraska, which was an old rivalry. right? I mean, it still is, but like, yeah, it used to be. I think it was Big 8. It was a Big 12 or was it Big 8 conference when they were playing each other all the time, one of the two. But man, they had a little bit of trouble out of the gate against Nebraska, but man, then they just took it to them, and they're so good. Nebraska did their best, but can't stop Shooter Sanders, man. That kid is elite. He's gonna. I mean, who knows? Because he's a junior, right? So is he gonna go for the draft after the season, or is he gonna wait one more year just to have his dad as his coach? That's gonna be something. But you've got him, Caleb Williams, kind of 1 and 2 for the Heisman right now. I mean, you can maybe even throw Travis Hunter in there because of how well he plays, especially on both sides of the ball. I mean, what? Crazy. So we'll see about that. But the Colorado Buffaloes are only gonna go higher and higher in the polls. Shoot, maybe they even make the playoffs this year. Who knows? I'm not saying they're gonna do that well, but then you've got Alabama losing at home in a night game to Texas. Crazy, right? Trying to pull up some more of the scores from last week because they're all just failing my brain right now, and I don't know why. I'll just kind of go through the order here. Number 1, Georgia smoked Ball State, obviously. Michigan smoked UNLV, obviously. Bama losing to Texas, obviously. Florida State, they whipped up on LSU 2 weeks ago. Now they beat Southern Miss. Ohio State won, USC won, Penn State won, Washington wins, Tennessee wins. Notre Dame beat a pretty decent North Carolina State team. Utah beats Baylor. Baylor, they're not going to look all that good. They don't look all that good so far this year. So, there's that. Oregon wins a close one to Texas Tech, going there into Texas, winning that game. Pretty close battle, but they were able to win the game there. They were actually losing going into the fourth quarter, and then they pulled up with the victory. LSU, they got pissed off. They lost to Florida State last year, and so they smoked Grambling. But who doesn't when you're at that level? Kansas State wins. Oregon State wins. DJ Uiagalelei proving some people wrong, especially at Clemson. I don't think he's that bad of a quarterback, actually. But, haters will still say that he's not that good. He's just not playing good teams. North Carolina beats App State. What a game this is, by the way. Like, 34-40, North Carolina wins in double overtime. Like, they played last year, and I think the final score were, like, both teams were in the 50s last year. Like, those two need to play every single week because that's just entertaining football, for sure. Like, crazy. Washington State beats number 19 Wisconsin. Kind of a shock, especially with how the Pac-12 is doing this year. And it's unfortunate that they don't have any TV deals or anything like that, and everyone's leaving them next year. Obviously, Colorado's one of them. USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, Cal, I think's gone. There's a couple others I'm missing too. Like, it stinks that they're not going to be a conference after this year because they're good this year now. It's crazy. Ole Miss beats Tulane. I don't think Tulane's going to be ranked anymore for the rest of the season unless they can just smoke out some more people. Duke being ranked 21. That's something you don't see every day for football, right? They beat Lafayette pretty easily. They're going to move up a little bit. Colorado smoking Nebraska, like I said earlier. Texas A&M losing to Miami, though. I think Miami's going to be a ranked team after this week. I'm sure it's already out, actually. So I can look at that here in a second. Clemson beating Charleston Southern, I think that is. Obviously, it is what it is. So going into this week, we've got updated stuff. Let's have a look at the rankings here real quick. I should be quicker on this, but going from 25 up, we'll go the AP top 25, not the coaches poll, because it is a little different. But you've got Iowa 25, UCLA, Washington State's finally in there after beating Wisconsin. Miami at 22. Duke stays at 21. I mean, they didn't really beat the worst or the best teams, so that makes sense. North Carolina drops 3, even though they won, to 20th there for North Carolina. Oklahoma to 19th. Colorado up 4 spots to 18th. Ole Miss moving up 3 spots. I mean, it makes sense. Ole Miss beating a ranked team and Colorado laying the smackdown on Nebraska. Then from 16 up, you've got Oregon State, Kansas State, LSU, Oregon, Utah have all stayed in the same spots. Tennessee drops 2 spots. I don't think that's necessarily because of, them being just not a great team. It's just more so other teams moving up. Alabama in 10th, dropping 7 spots because of that loss to Tennessee. Notre Dame moves up 1 spot because of that. Washington and Penn State stay at the same at 8th and 7th respectively. Ohio State drops 1 spot to USC. Those 2 flip-flop. Texas is now 4th. Florida State now up to 4. Michigan 2. Georgia 1, as expected. So, yeah, I mean, it's weird seeing Alabama and LSU in the top 25 with a loss to their name already. But, those 2 teams are better than most teams anyway in the country. So, there's that. College football is going to be a fun week this week. Obviously, my lovely Mizzou is playing this week. But, they're not going to be the best of teams, really. So, there's not much to say there. Let's see if I can't. I'm trying to rank this or organize the schedule here by rankings and all that. But so yeah, tomorrow night Miami plays. They'll easily beat Bethune-Cookman. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they'll win that game 100-0 probably. Florida State, Boston College, easy win for them. Penn State, Illinois might be tough, but Penn State should win. LSU, Mississippi State, good SEC matchup. Should be a fun one. LSU wins that, though. Kansas State is playing Mizzou, so, they got a ranked game, but Kansas State will win that game easily. Utah, Webster State. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of, games that absolutely scream at you, right? I don't think this week. I mean, maybe LSU, Mississippi State, because it's, SEC, Penn State, Illinois, maybe. I'm trying to go through here and find. I mean, Georgia, South Carolina could be a good game, but other than that, I'm not seeing any crazy games here. So, yeah, there is the slate for college football this week. Nothing too crazy to talk about there. Moving on to, we'll talk tennis. Yeah, Djokovic wins another one. The whole thing is just hilarious with Djokovic winning the U.S. Open a year after he was told he can't compete in the U.S. Open because he wasn't vaccinated. And then he wins it. And the tournament was sponsored by Moderna. So all the replays of them showing how good he is being sponsored by Moderna. Quite funny. Everyone has their own views. I won't get into anything like that. That's just silly. But it's very ironic. It's very fitting. Right. Whenever Djokovic beat Ben Shelton in the semis, Ben Shelton he won his quarterfinal and he did the, I'm hanging up on him because, all the haters, I'm not listening to him. And Djokovic did the same thing to him once he beat him in the semifinals. Then he goes on to beat Medvedev in the final. He's just the greatest to ever do it, man. Right? You've got your Nadal and your Federer, and that's your top 3 easy, but it's kind of hard not to look at Djokovic as the greatest tennis player of all time, right? I mean, he's just unstoppable on concrete, on grass, on clay. He's done it all. So, I'm not the biggest, I'm not a diehard tennis guy. I'm not the best versed on it all, but it's fun watching him play, dude, because he is unreal. Some things have been heating up in the NHL, which is weird because it's the beginning of September. Well, middle of September now, I guess, but you don't usually hear a whole lot about hockey until the end of September, beginning of October, somewhere around there. Mike Babcock, new head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, just got hired over the summer. He was formerly at the Maple Leafs, and before that, the Red Wings. He's under some hot water because a story came out. Paul Bissonnette, Spittin' Chicklets podcast, Barstool podcast. He tweeted out a screenshot of a current NHL player. You didn't see the name, which obviously, you're not going to send anything to someone like that who can put stuff out there without telling him, hey, you can't show my name because that's ridiculous, right? He's like, yeah, Babcock's like doing this stuff. He's, the story goes that Babcock is calling players into his office. I don't know if it's like more than one or just individually, stuff like that. And telling his players, let me see your phone. I want to go through your photos just to kind of see who you are as a person. And obviously that throws up red flags in every which direction because, he's an old school coach, so he's been scrutinized for things in the past of like coaching guys too hard and just kind of saying things and doing things that doesn't really fly in the sports world or the, regular world these days. So hearing that instantly, you're like, wait a second. I don't really know how I feel about this because, you don't just go up to one of your coworkers and be like, oh, I want to see all the pictures on your phone because I want to get to know you better. Like, that's just not exactly the way to do it. Now, the Blue Jackets, this all happened yesterday on Tuesday. So Paul Bissonnette put it out in the morning that this was going down. And then, like, before noon, the Blue Jackets had an official statement come out. It was Babcock come out and say, yes, I was doing it, but the only thing I was doing was asking some of the players to, like, show me pictures of their family and, like, their pets and stuff like that, just to, try and get to know them and their families a little bit better. And I think he's the captain now, Boone Jenner. I'm going to be upset that I don't know that for sure, but if he's not the captain, he's a very influential player for the Blue Jackets. He come out and said, he's like, yeah, I mean, everything Babcock said is true. There's nothing really going on here. This is kind of a nothing story. And the Blue Jackets were like, yeah, this is pretty sad from the guys over at the Spittin' Chiclet podcast that they're coming out with these allegations like this, and they don't have much to back it up with. It's like, well, they do have someone that says they're doing it. Other people around the league have confirmed of older stuff Babcock's done, so it's a very weird one to look at and kind of see who's telling the truth, who's not. I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle, right? But, I mean, the people online, some other people similar to Bissonnette come out and say, like, we're not lying. This stuff has happened, and it is happening. Other people have told us that it's happening here in Columbus. So, who knows where the truth is. But I'm sure we'll find out if it's not in the next couple of days or weeks, years from now. Someone will say something on a podcast, 10 years from now. Hopefully that's me, but probably not, right? Anyway, moving on from that, it's time to make some picks for week 2 in the NFL slate this week. So we're going to swap it on over to this screen right here. As you can see, these are all my picks from last week. Got some of these right, some of these wrong. Let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games right, if I'm doing that right. 6 games out of 16 right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games right. Yeah, yikes. So we're going to do better this week. We are going to make these picks, and we're going to do better than 6 and 10 from last week. I want to kind of I have this whole thing saved to where I want to do it to where you can see on the sides here the records for the teams. We're gonna go through my picks from week to week and compare that to the actual records of these teams here at the end of the season. I think that's going to be fun to do. So enough of all that. Let's get into these week 2 picks. So we're going to start with the Thursday night game and then just kind of go from left to right, and then do the Sunday night game, which I actually don't know. I have to look at that real quick. the Sunday night game kind of towards the end, and then the 2 Monday night games at the end, obviously. But first up, we've got the Eagles and the Vikings. They're going to be in Philadelphia. So I think this is a pretty easy one to predict because the Eagles came off a win last week. The Vikings came off a close loss last week, and the Eagles were away and the Vikings were home, and they got those results, that they did. So I think the Eagles win this game. I don't think the Eagles played all that well last week either, if I'm going to be honest. Maybe that was because of the Patriots' defense more so than the Eagles' offense, but they scored 25 points, so that's good, right? But I don't know, they just seemed a little off. Week 1 jitters probably, something like that. But I think the Eagles win that game quite comfortably. So going from left to right here, the rest of the Sunday games, we'll start with the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Now we got a repeat of the playoff game that they had last year where the Jaguars went into Arrowhead and lost, got eliminated from the playoffs. So now the Chiefs are going to Jacksonville, but the Chiefs have a mini bye week, kind of as you can see by this little red thing here. You can see it under the Lions as well. So this is a weird one because the Jaguars played really well against the Colts, and the Chiefs, they didn't play terrible, but they ended up losing to the Lions last week. So it's a weird one to pick. I think Chris Jones is going to be back. We don't know about Kelsey yet. I'm going to assume that he's going to be back because he had a bone bruise, so it wasn't a terrible injury. So I'm going to assume the Chiefs are going to be fully there, and Mahomes is going to have his number one target to pick at. I want to pick the Jaguars in this one. I just want to because they played so well last week, and they're going to be in Duval this week. And they played the Chiefs really well in the playoffs last year. So I think, I'm going to stick with it. I think the Jaguars get it done. I think they're going to be fine. Now the Bengals-Ravens. Bengals at home coming off a tough loss to the Browns last week. Obviously, Joe Burrow, he starts slow every single year and slowly gets better and better. But the Ravens got the dub against Houston last week, and they didn't look their best either. Yes, the conditions weren't the greatest, but an AFC North clash right here. This is week 2, and these are tough games to call. I don't know, man. I think if the Bengals fall to 0-2, they're going to be fine. But you know what? I'm going to go with the Ravens to win this game. I think, like I said, the Bengals just start slow. I think they were 0-2 to start the year last year, and then they went on that run to a deep playoff push there. I just don't think Joe Burrow's going to be 100% just yet. Similar to last year, it took him a few games to get going. I think Joe Burrow, with his calf injury, he's still not 100% just yet. And the Ravens will sneak away with a win. It's going to be a very close game. But, yeah, I think the Ravens get it done. Solely because of Lamar Jackson. Maybe not even because of OBJ, Zay Flowers, J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, getting out for the season is super unfortunate. That sucks for them. But, yeah, I think they're going to be okay and get the W right here. Bills playing host to the Raiders. I would say this is an easy Bills dub, but after them losing to the Jets the other night and the Raiders beating the Broncos, maybe I'm not so certain about that. But I'm still going to pick the Bills. They're going to be at home. They're going to look for some revenge over the Jets game. And the Raiders, they're just not going to be expecting, or maybe they will be expecting, but they're not going to be able to handle Josh Allen in that offense. I don't see Josh Allen throwing 3 interceptions again this week. I think he's going to be just fine. He's not known for super crazy bad back-to-back weeks, I don't think. So I think he'll be fine. And the Bills will kind of get back on the right path there. Chargers and Titans. The Chargers looked super good last week, but they just couldn't handle the offense of the Dolphins. So I think they're going to get the W over the Tennessee Titans here this week, just because the Titans just don't look all that great. And I think they're going to be a middle-of-the-pack team. I think the Chargers are going to make a solid playoff push here this year, and they're going to be just fine. And we got the Colts traveling to Houston to play the Texans. This is a tough one, man, because Anthony Richardson looked amazing, but he did get a little banged up there towards the end of the game. I haven't been paying attention too much, but I don't think he's going to be out this week against the Texans. But the Texans are at home, and that stadium is underrated when it comes to like noise and crowd atmosphere, stuff like that. So this might be one of the few wins for one of these teams here, unless they tie. I do have the option of picking that, but I'm not going to. I think the Colts get it done. Yeah, I think the Colts get it done. It's not going to be a pretty game, but I think the Colts, just because, I mean, Anthony Richardson, he looked great. He really did. The Jacks, and they scored 21 against the Jaguars, who are leaps and bounds above the Texans, in my opinion. So I think this is going to be a tough game to watch. I don't think there's going to be a lot of excitement to it, but I think the Colts get it done. Now, the Dolphins-Patriots is a Sunday night game, so we'll come back to them. We got Jets and Cowboys in Dallas. Now, if Aaron Rodgers was not hurt and everything that happened Monday night still happened, I'd think that we have a very serious game on our hands. But the Cowboys just looked so good. Defense, special teams, offense, they looked so good. So I don't think there's a whole lot to say about this one. The Jets do have a great defense, so I think I don't think the Cowboys will put up 40 against the Jets like they did the Giants, but I don't think the Jets are going to have the best offense coming into this week with Zach Wilson. I want to be proven super wrong on Zach Wilson, by the way, but just don't see it happening. So I think the Cowboys get the win in that one. All right. Excuse me. Anyway, we've got the Commanders traveling to Denver to play the Broncos. This is, again, weird one. Commanders squeaked out a win, against the Cardinals last week, but the Broncos lost to the Raiders last week. So I don't know how to think of this one. I think this is a very evenly matched game, so I think I'm going to pick the Broncos just purely because they're at home and there's that altitude. I don't think there's much else in it. Maybe Russell Wilson and Sean Payton kind of figure things out a little bit better now that they've got a game under their belt. They kind of understand the whole experience with everything, and there's that. So I think the Broncos get it done. I think they barely squeak away with the win. Bears traveling to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Now this is another fun one because the Bears offense I think is really good, and I think they're going to be electric, even though they didn't show that last week. And the Buccaneers get a big win over the Vikings last week too, so it's a tough one to call. I feel like I'm putting a home field a little too thick into my bias here, but I think I'm going to go Buccaneers. It's just, again, the Bears, they had the number one overall pick last year. So maybe we're just overhyping the Bears a little bit. You get the number one overall pick for a reason, right? So, yeah, screw it. We're going to go with the Buccaneers to win this game and start out 2-0 in their division. Green Bay traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Man, it's hard for me not to pick the Packers after that amazing Week 1 performance against the Bears. And the Falcons, it looked like they struggled a little bit against the Panthers and then figured it out, got that victory in the end. But I don't think they played as well as the Packers last week. So I think just purely off of what I've seen, I think the Packers get it done. Seahawks traveling to Denver to play the Lions. If you're not picking the Lions in this one, I don't know what's wrong with you, especially because of the Seahawks losing last week, the Lions getting a huge victory over the Chiefs last week, and having a few extra days rest. I think the Lions take care of business in this one very easily. San Francisco traveling to LA. Not a huge travel, but, you got to go play at SoFi to play the Rams, who looked super good last week. Shocking win over the Seahawks for me. I didn't think they were going to win that game, but lo and behold, they did. And they were in Seattle as well, so this one gets a little bit tighter for me, but with how well they played against the Steelers last week, it's just, I'm on the 49ers until I see otherwise, because they killed it last week against the Steelers. They were amazing. So I think they get the win in SoFi. It's probably going to be like 60% 49ers fans anyway, because that's how it usually goes there in SoFi for either LA team, unless it's the playoffs. So I think the 49ers get it done. Giants and Cardinals, man, after last week with what the Giants went through, it's hard to pick them to win, especially going to Arizona. Yes, the Cardinals aren't going to be a good team, but man, the Giants just looked so bad last week. This is one of those games where the Cardinals are like, you know what, we're going to take it to them because they're weak. We can get these guys. And the Giants are in their locker room thinking, all right, we have to figure it out quick. We need a get-right game. We need to, lay the smack down on the Cardinals, and we need to, take it to them easily. So I think last week was a fluke for the Giants. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near that bad for a single game the rest of the year. But, man, it was not pretty. So part of me wants to pick a tie just because I don't like either of these teams to win this game. But I don't think I'm going to pick any ties in any of these predictions. That would just be boring and silly. I'm going to go with the Giants. I think they're going to be all right. They're going to bounce back and get the win over the Cardinals. So that brings us to the Sunday night game with the Dolphins traveling to the Patriots in Foxborough to play their Sunday night game, primetime game. Man, the Dolphins offense looked so good last week. They were just unbelievable. I don't see them slowing down and getting stopped by many defenses this season, if any. I mean, the Chargers defense isn't the greatest, and they put up 36 against them, and I see them doing that a lot this season. So, Tua to Tyreek, wow, what a combination. So I think the Dolphins win this game. I think it's going to be a little easier for them than it was for the Eagles last week. And yeah, I think they get the dub there in primetime, which leads us to the two Monday night games. And I can't remember which ones. There's an hour difference between the start times, but I think the Steelers-Browns kicks off first. So we're going to go with this one first. And wow, I mean, I would have easily picked the Steelers before last week because I wasn't all that high on the Browns. But, they get the huge dub against the Bengals last week. They put Joe Burrow in his place. The Browns look good. So, and the Steelers did not. So, this is a tough one. I think it's going to be a really close game. It's a, divisional matchup, AFC North football. These two teams do not like each other, and they will really, go at each other's throats. I think the Steelers are more well-equipped for games like this. Mike Tomlin's been around for ages. You got T.J. Watt, Kenny Pickett. He's still trying to look to take that next step. But I think the Steelers, they've just got a little bit more experience when it comes to stuff like that, and they'll be all right. And they'll get that W in this one. And finally, the Saints and the Carolina Panthers. I'm still high on the Panthers, man. They lost to the Falcons last week. I think the Panthers win this division somehow. Maybe that's just so much more with my heart than my brain on that one. But they're at home against the Saints, who squeaked out a win against the Titans team, who is mediocre at best. My brain is telling me that the Saints will win this game. And my heart is just tugging me to the other side and just saying, pick the Panthers, dude. Bryce Young, he's gonna show out. Everyone's super high on him as well. Everyone in the Panthers organization, they're super high on this guy. So I let the heart get the best of me last week. Although you could argue that was a much closer game on paper, the Panthers and the Falcons. So I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to let my heart dictate my prediction one more time. And if it's a blowout by the Saints, we're going to throw that out the window and move on. But if the Panthers win, or at least make it a very, very close game, I'm still going to be on them. So there's, I think the Panthers do it. I think they do it. So there's my Week 2 picks. Let me know your thoughts there in the comments here. What you think. Obviously, I'm not getting any of these right. So, let me know what you think. But yeah, let's see what happens. And let's see how it goes. But those are my week 2 picks. Some of these games I'm not convinced at all on them. I mean, the Ravens Bengals, the Browns Steelers. I mean, the Colts Texans, the Commanders Broncos. You know, even like the Bears Buccaneers, the Cardinals Giants. You know, some of these I'm not super sold on, but you know, I got 6 picks right out of the 16 games last week, so I'm not expecting to be right on most of these anyway. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, there on the sides you can see these are my picks. These obviously aren't the correct records because you know the Broncos have already lost a game. So we're gonna see how this goes for the whole season. We'll see how my predictions compared to the actual records of these teams. But yeah, there's not a whole lot else for me to ramble on about. Really, I'm trying to think of 1 or 2 things that happened over the last week or will happen in the next few days outside of football, realistically. I am from St. Louis. I am a Cardinals fan. Adam Wainwright got his 199th win of his career yesterday, which is awesome. He wants to get that 200 to kind of further solidify how good of a pitcher he is, which he is, but this year he's just been not that good, and it sucks because he's not great this season, and you know, he's just been stinking. The whole Cardinals have been stinking. There's another reason why I haven't watched much baseball this year is because the Cardinals stink. But when the playoffs come, I'll probably tune in a little bit more, but then again, hockey and football and then basketball is going to start up. I don't watch a whole lot of basketball either, but that'll be on. So yeah, there's that. So I think that's all I've got for this week, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you very much for tuning in, whether it was here on the live stream or if you're watching this as a recorded video, you're checking this out later on. I sincerely appreciate it. You guys have no idea how much it means to me that y'all tune in. It's awesome. Thank you guys so much. Leave a like on the video live stream if you enjoy it. Hit the subscribe button if you're new around here and you want to see more videos. I've got a lot more shorter form stuff coming, as long as live streams every single week going forward. So check it out and let me know what you guys think. So until next time, everyone, I will see you next week. Take care and peace.